I feel like I've gotten comments for so long asking me to review Ohuhu markers, so that is what I am doing today. I hope you're satisfied now. So yeah, let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. It's finally here, your eyes do not deceive you. Every single time I ask about a review video, I always get comments about Ohuhu markers, so here we are. Here we go. Couple of things. First off, I'm not being paid to say anything in this video. I'm not sponsored. They did not send these to me. I bought these with my own money, and Ohuhu has no idea who I am, but that I'm making this video. Secondly, when I decided I was going to be reviewing these markers, I thought, okay, might as well go all out and buy the biggest pack they have. But I didn't process in my head that 200 is a large number. I didn't realize how much 200 markers actually was until I had them all laid out on my desk in front of me. It's a lot. So normally in these review videos I like to swatch out the colors, but if I did that we'd be here forever. I already have them swatched here. It came with these swatch pages that I taped together, and now it's the size of this. I decided to record myself filling this in and then speed up the footage and kind of talk about my first initial impressions, because that's a bummer that I didn't get that on camera. My initial impression is that there's a lot of colors here. Now, again, I bought 200 of them, but there is a very large variety. One thing that I heard a lot about Ohuhu markers before testing them out myself is the lighter colors can sometimes be a little lacking. And that's something that I definitely noticed. There are very light, like grays and then some pretty pale skin tones, but in terms of other colors, the lighter colors don't tend to be like as light. I'm going to be comparing them to Copics throughout this video, because that's like my baby and like the industry standard. Let's say compared to Copic markers, some of the colors, even the lightest ones, don't get as light. And whether or not that is a big issue really depends on the type of art that you make. But overall, I think that there is a very nice variety of colors. I also wish that they were organized a little bit better, because as you can see by looking at the chart, the colors are kind of everywhere. It starts off going like in a rainbow order, but then all of a sudden in the middle of the yellows there's some greens, and then there's like pinks and within the purples, and then that bleeds into the browns, but then at the end of the browns there's more purples. It's a little everywhere. I just wish that they were organized a little bit nicer. And of course, so far all I've done is swatched. I decided to save the blending and everything for this video. There seems to be like tiny little white specks in there, and a big part of me thinks it's the paper. This paper is a little bit more textured. It honestly feels kind of close to watercolor paper, but that's there, so we'll find out if that's the paper or if that's the markers. And then another thing, I got this set of 200 for $100, which is 50 cents per marker. For that, I'm pretty damn impressed. So not too long ago, I reviewed some alcohol-based markers that I found at Five Below, and those evened out to about 80 cents per marker, give or take. And even though all I've done so far is swatch these, I already like these a lot better, and the markers themselves are individually cheaper. And then another thing, these are the Ohuhu markers where the one side is a bullet nib and then the other side is a chisel nib. They do have different sets where they have different nibs available. Like there's different, I think they call them series, but they have ones where there's a brush and a chisel, a brush and a fine, and then there's these ones which is a fine and a chisel. But from what I do understand, these ones are the only ones available currently that's sold in a set, or at least this big of a set. This was the only option that I was given. But yes, time for me to actually use them properly. I'm very excited. They've been sitting on my desk. I'll start by trying a blending test. I want to get like a light tone, a mid-tone, and a dark tone. I'm also not going to be testing how each individual color layers, because that'd take a really long time. I'll test how these colors layer on top of each other, but then I'll also just kind of talk about it as I make the final illustration. Right off the bat though, I'm just going to assume that they work like a lot of alcohol markers I've tried, where the lighter colors tend to layer on top of themselves easier than the darker colors. Normally I rely pretty heavily on having a brush nib to blend, so I'm curious to see how this is gonna go. It did also come with a colorless blender. I guess I should try it out for the sake of this video, but I don't really use colorless blenders a whole lot. Oh. Should have saw that coming. Here, let's put this down. It came with this. It's like a sheet to put on top. But yeah, look at that. Not perfect, but I'm pretty satisfied with it. Let's try the 2 darker colors, and then we'll try a 3-color gradient. Another thing I'll say about the colors available, I feel like some of the colors were fairly similar, which happens a lot with a lot of different alcohol markers, so I'm not gonna harp on that too much. But I figured it is, like, worth mentioning. If anything, I think it goes to show that you don't need the 200 set. Yeah, even the darker colors tend to blend nicely. Again, not as smooth. I think a big part of that is because of the brush nib though. Look at me, I'm like Wolverine. Definitely a learning curve here of trying to feather blend without a brush nib. Although I guess that's more of a me problem. Now we'll try with the Colorless Blender. A lot of people don't realize you gotta put the blender down first. It definitely blends easier with the blender. I don't use colorless blenders a lot, so I can't really say how often I'm going to be using that. There's that. I noticed it also feathers out a little bit more when you use the blender. Or at least just blending in general, because when you first put down the color, there's not like any feathering, but then once you start blending more, once you start layering the colors on top of itself more and more, then it like feathers out a little bit more. It's not too big of an issue depending on the art that you make. I'm a little bit worried because I do a lot of blending and layering in my art style. We will see how this goes, I guess. Oh, wow. Wow. This is why you put the colorless blender down first. Kind of similar to how you would use watercolors, I guess, where sometimes if you want to blend 2 colors, you'll put the water down first and then put the paint on top of it. It's kind of like that, but with alcohol. But yeah, first impressions, I'm very surprised and very impressed. I know I'm going to forget to say this. I have a thumbnail drawing right here. I wanted to make a thumbnail drawing because I knew I wanted to draw 2 different characters in an illustration, just because there's a lot of markers here. And so I figured if I have 2 characters with pretty different color schemes, it would give me more of an opportunity to test out more and more of the colors. I probably should have colored it with the bullet nib first because less ink tends to come out of the bullet nib. Yeah, let's try that. Yeah, see, now they're layering much better. Layer test, pretty good. As suspected, the darker colors don't layer as nicely. This lighter color layered super beautifully. And also we've established they bleed. How much or how little they bleed really depends on how much you layer and blend and also what kind of paper you're using. This is cardstock, so it's like kind of thick. It's very nice of them to include this. Even if you don't have it, it's not really a big deal. I usually just put a scrappy piece of paper under all of my marker illustrations anyways. Put these markers back. Put this here and get to draw on that illustration. What I'm drawing is I'm drawing 2 of my characters, Robin and Arietta. Robin has a lot of reds and oranges and blacks in her design, and then Arietta has a lot of pinks, blues, and grays. I figured that would give me a more cohesive piece but still have a variety of colors. So pose is roughed out. Take our little buddy here. Oh, my face. I didn't hit my face in my light. What are you talking about? Lighten this up quite a bit. Oh my god. Trying a new lighting setup so these lights are bright in my face and I keep hitting my head and glasses on it. Let me know what you think of the lighting though. Don't quite like the angle. Tilting the head up slightly more. I think that's how it was in my thumbnail. You can still kind of see the mouth, and if you look at the old mouth with the new face, it looks weird. Kind of looks like how I used to draw mouths, to be honest. Calling you out past me. That's not her face at all. What do you mean? Her face is much more round. That's fine for now, I guess. Sometimes I forget how to draw my characters. I was about to say it's not my fault I have so many, but it quite literally is my fault. Now let's block in the details. Normally I put my face into my drawings, but now with this new lighting setup, I can't really do that. That's my chin. I really love the dynamic between these 2. Their personalities are... fuck. Personalities are so different, so it's always fun drawing them together. I'm actually very excited to try out these markers. Heard great things about them. You better not have all been lying to me. Oh no, is it gonna start raining? It looks so gloomy outside. If it starts storming, I might need to... Oh, I was filming, which I don't want to. I've already had to sit a full 24 hours with these things staring at me at my desk. At least the lawnmower guy is in here. I also like drawing these 2 because they get compared to Miku and then that other girl from Vocaloid whose name I can never remember, but I know it when I see it. And it was completely unintentional because I don't think I've ever heard a Vocaloid song in my life. It's always funny whenever I realize one of my characters looks like another character or somebody else points it out because it's like, well, it sure does. It happens. It'd be like that sometimes. Both of these nose sketches are very faded and I don't know which one is the right one. There's a nose. I don't know if it's placed correctly. I think it needs to be lower, which means this one was the correct one. I like how I didn't erase this nostril. Get out of here. You're not welcome anymore. Is that too low now? Get low, get low. Don't like that. Hard to draw the word squiggly in my mouth. I don't know how to do it. Can't tell if I like her face at all. You know what? I think the jaw needs to be brought up. There we go. I think that's better. Ma'am. Ma'am. It is unnecessary. What did I say? 'Cause I believe I said it's unnecessary to do that. I really like her legs. Not sure if I completely like this leg, but also don't know if I hate it enough to commit changing to it. Okay. Okay. Two very different okays in the span of a few seconds. But I think I'm done with the sketch. I hope these markers do well because I really like this sketch. That's all lightened up. Set those ones to the side. I don't know if Ohuhu sells liners. I'm assuming they do, but I didn't think to check. I don't actually know. So instead I'm going to be using these Micron sepia liners. I know Ohuhu sells sketchbooks, so let me know if you want me to try those out. I actually didn't test if the markers like the microns. I mean, I'm going to assume that the markers will work fine with the liners. I've never seen anyone have an issue with it. I'm also curious to see how the Ohuhu markers work with other brands, particularly Copic, because that's what I use most often, but also I want to see if they blend well and everything with other brands. I don't think I'm going to test that in this video. I think I want to keep this a strictly Ohuhu illustration, but I'll definitely keep you guys updated on that in the future. I'll draw her little bow. Say little, but it's massive. It's like the size of her head. Wow. Mayhu. Blossom who. That girl from Vocaloid who. Kiki's delivery service who. Cute dog barking. No? Wow. Shocked me. Oh. Hi. Is that for me? You don't need to do that. No, I have a snack. What? You're not getting any french fries. You're not getting any. They're not for Zola Bears. Don't talk back to me. So, ma'am. Can you drop the attitude? Drop the attitude. Don't interrupt me when I'm talking. Don't interrupt me when I'm talking. Raising children is hard. You only ever drink water when I'm working. Why is that? Do you care to explain yourself, ma'am? I don't know how that happened. I did my best to fix it. Finished the line art. Here's where it's at so far. Okay, it's the next day, because of course it is. I erased the pencil off camera, because that's not interesting at all. Now it's time for the fun part, which is the coloring part. The part that this whole entire video is about. But also, since it is the next day, I have coffee. It's off screen, because we all know what happens when I try and keep my coffee in frame for a nice aesthetic shot. How much do I have to pay someone to watch all of my videos and make a compilation of how many times I spill coffee? I have this scrap paper here for testing color schemes. Because this chart is less organized than my Copic chart, it's gonna take a little longer to pick colors, so just bear with me. I think this could be a good skin color for Arietta, because she's quite pale. Because Arietta is so pale, I don't think I'll need a highlight color. I'm gonna try and use this Colorless Blender though, maybe. I think what it is that these are both more pink and these ones are both more of like a brown. So I think I need to shape this something a little more pink. But I don't want her skin to look like pink, just with like pink undertones. I think I'll just layer these ones because I don't want to spend too much time trying to find these colors. Normally I add the base tone and the highlights first. How do I do that since I'm using a blender? I guess blender first? I don't know how long the blender can stay there without drying up. I guess we're gonna find out. I mean, it worked okay. It could have gone worse. I'll accept it. Mostly concerned about adding the darker shades. I feel like it's a little bit of a big jump. If I blend it out enough, it should be fine, right? As suspected, It's a little bit difficult to blend things out how I normally would because of the lack of a brush nib. To blend things out, I rely a lot on feather blending, which is where you take the nib and you go like that, which can still happen, as you can see. It's just a lot more difficult to get the variation that I need, I guess. I'm making do. I'm also using a separate sheet of paper to put underneath here. The thing they gave me is a little too small for this page. If you're working in a sketchbook or something, or you just generally work smaller, I think it's really cool that they included that. I feel like I'm using more markers than normal. I guess you guys can be the judge of that. I feel like you guys sometimes know my art process better than I do. But I feel like to get a similar effect, I need to use more markers. Still not quite satisfied with the darker shadows, but also there's not a lot of darker tones that would work for her skin because her skin has more pink undertones than a lot of like the mid-tones, which is what I would use to shade her skin. A lot of those in the browns are more orangey. Robin's skin is a little bit more tan. I think that's too dark. Although that could be a good shading color. Oh, Robin, where is your skin? I mean, hopefully on your body. What about this one? Or I could fling these across, that's fine. Now that I look at this, I feel like her eyes are too far apart. Nothing I can do about it now. I'll accept it. Definitely not what I'd normally go for her skin. But it's done now. Yeah, her skin's definitely more orange here than it normally is. I mean, her skin has some pretty orange undertones, but I haven't quite figured out how these colors translate to my characters, as you can probably tell. I think I'm starting to get the hang of these. Definitely have to change my process up a little bit. Not a whole lot. Just a little bit. I think that just about does it for... Wait, no. Her hands. She has hands that need to be shaded. I think next I'll work on Robin's hair. Is this what's gonna do it? The orange. The one I thought that would be easier. Why is this the difficult part? Hey. How about... Okay, hang on. I'll get a picture of Robin to use as reference. Those are Robin's colors. Gonna use that one to shade with. That one will be the base tone, and then those will be my colors. And then I'll pick a shading color as we go along, because holy fucking shit. That took way too long. So we got this one, which I'll shade with a mix of that, and then I'll pick another color. Who fucking cares? Blend this part out. Now I'll tone it down. I'm not the most satisfied with that, but I mean, it is what it is. It looks like hair. It looks like she has orange hair, so I guess mission accomplished. Alright, next let's do Ariana's hair. Hopefully this will go easier in terms of picking colors. I think this one. What about this color? That'll work. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think this one might be a better skin base tone. Then let's say we use this for the highlight. That is much better. Base tone and highlight. Ah! Do you see what just happened there? I am a fool. Why did I draw Ariana with so much hair? Why did I design her this way? In the end, it only makes my life more difficult. I mixed up her shading color and her regular color. Well, shoot. Now I gotta deal with it. I forgot I had the cap off already. Now there's marker on my hands. Well, let's be honest, there's always marker on my hands. See, look. Everything looks fine. Don't let anyone tell you I used the wrong color for her hair, even though I announced it. It's totally fine. It was an intentional choice. I mean, it looks like her hair, right? It looks like hair. It looks like her hair. Robin's eyes are green, and that's the only green in the drawing, so I'll just slap some on real quick. And Ariana's eyes are red. I'll color the red on Robin, and right off the bat, this one seems like a good base tone for the red. And then for highlight, I believe I use orange for the highlights, so let's try this. My plants are barely in frame. How did that happen? I have learned it's easier to blend with the Chisel Nib because it's a lot juicier, I guess. Color outside the lines. It's a very important part of the process. Cover up the mistakes that I totally didn't make. I'm not entirely satisfied with these highlight colors. I mean, whatever, it's fine. It'll do. Let's just move on. Shout out to all the artists who are also perfectionists. Our daily life is a struggle. Gonna blend this and then we'll call it a red thing. I'll probably do the grays and blacks, so then that way I can finish up Robin. Then I can just focus on Arietta. Normally, I gravitate towards cool grays, but these cool grays are super cool. I feel like the warm grays are more neutral, and then the neutral grays are more cool. So let's go with the neutral grays. Let's start off with this, and then blend it out with this. Wrong color. I'm big brain. Also, before I forget, I should probably color in the cuff things on her gloves. I don't know, I never quite figured out what they were. It's just the design element. And then boom, it do be done. Okay, let's add the black and grays to Arietta now. I don't know why I keep blending with the bullet nib when I've already established it's easier to blend with the chisel nib. I'm very curious. What are your thoughts on Arietta's socks? Honestly, I wasn't too sure about them when I decided to redesign her. Since it was a prominent part of her old design, I decided to keep it, and now they really grew on me. But I'm curious to know, what do you think? So for her shirt over thing, don't even know what to call it still. Let's just call it a shirt. It's like a very, very, very muted brown, so almost like a gray. So let's try, yes, this is exactly the color. Then for a highlight color, actually just use that as the highlight color. And then for shading, how is that? Where is it? Again, don't know why I'm using the bullet nib when the chisel nib is so much better for blending. Switch over to this for a minute. And then I'm gonna color these insides with the chisel nib. Chisel? Chisel. Faux chisel. I definitely think my art style is a big reason this is so difficult to blend. Basically what all my coloring is, just blending nonstop. I will say me using these is making me very curious about the Ohuhu brush markers. A brush nib that makes the blending a hell of a lot easier. And I think that these, they definitely get the job done, clearly, because I am in fact blending. I have to work a lot harder to get the same effect, so I wonder how much that problem would be solved by the brush markers. This turned out a little bit darker than it's supposed to be, but I mean, it's fine. And then bits of the darkest shading. After that, I think it's just the blue parts, right? Awesome. We are almost there, my friends. So her skirt is like a royal blue, which looks like it's that one. And then it looks like this would be a good highlight color. Then for shade, let's try this one. Let me actually try putting this one in here too, just because I feel like that's a big jump. Yeah, I'll have all these out. Also, instead of adding washi tape like I'll normally do for my illustrations, I think I want to try decorating it with the fluorescent markers, because it came with 4 of them and I'm really tempted to try them out. But also fluorescent colors are very hard to work with because of how bright and saturated they are, so I just want to try and add some finishing touches like how I would normally use washi tape. Let me switch to the chisel nib. It's just a habit to not use the chisel nib, because when I use Copics, it's honestly more frustrating to use the chisel nib than useful, because with the brush nib, you can cover the same amount of area and also smaller. So there isn't really a need for a bullet nib or a chisel nib when you have access to a brush nib. I also feel like with these, it's a little bit harder to, I just put blue in the sleeve, it's fine. I feel like it's a little bit harder to get flat colors, because again, the brush nib allows you to cover both. Hello, is he being bad? Do you want to expose him to the world? Well, yeah. He's like, don't expose me. Come here. What? No, you're not gonna go on my desk. You're just going to sit here. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. Squish. What was I saying? You can cover just as much with the brush nib as the chisel nib, and also you can get the smaller crevices like with the bullet nib. And so when you have to keep switching between the two, it lets the ink sit into the paper more, which means it dries a little more, so it's harder to blend them out. I think that's what I would guess. Take these out later. Let's see, maybe I should have the fluorescent ones first. So let's see. I don't want to do anything too crazy. Other than like adding some accents, I can't imagine these fluorescent colors serving any sort of big purpose. Because of how bright and saturated they are, it's so hard to like work them into a piece without it being a lot, you know? Slap some highlights on here. Boom! It has been finished. Here's the final product. It's kind of hard to see now that I did this which parts bleed, but I mean, you could probably guess the ones that are more patchy. And also I forgot to mention, but that speckly texture has made a return. It's not a big deal. It's not super noticeable. It's mostly just in the darker areas. Honestly, the camera isn't even really picking up on it, so you guys might not even know what I'm talking about. But here's my finished illustration using Ohuhu markers. Now, thoughts. I already talked about how I'm very impressed with the color selection, and I bought 200 markers for $100, which very damn impressive. I'm really happy with how they performed given the price point. As someone who primarily uses Copics, using Ohuhu markers as my main marker medium feels somewhat like a downgrade, but I feel bad even saying that. It makes it sound like they're bad and that I had a bad time. But I genuinely had a really great experience with these. I've used a lot of different markers. I've used obviously like Copics, which are the high-end ones, and I've used markers from Five Below. So that being said, I think for 50 cents per marker, so these would put these in the cheaper category. They perform very, very nicely. If we have like my tier of markers, we'll have number 1 would be Copics, and then I'd probably put number 2 as Ohuhu markers. I really, really enjoyed these, and then the rest underneath that. I get asked a lot about marker alternatives because a lot of people are reluctant to buy Copics. Understandably so. They are very pricey, even for me. Even as someone who uses them a lot, my wallet is still crying. Whenever I get asked that, I'll always suggest like Spectrum Noir or Prismacolor. But now I feel like the main recommendation I'm going to give is Ohuhu markers. I really, really believe if you don't want to get Copic markers, these are the next best thing. You do have to make some sacrifices because of that. Of course, the color range isn't as wide and you don't have the brush nib. At least when you buy it in the sets, I'll probably do a little bit more research and figure out how that works. So upon further research, it seems like the 200 marker set is the only set that doesn't have a brush nib alternative. All of the bullet nib and chisel nib pairing is available in all the sets they have, but the 200 set is the only one that doesn't have a brush nib alternative. So if you wanted a brush nib and if that's like an essential, then you'll have to buy a smaller pack. I don't know if they're ever planning on adding a brush nib to the 200 pack, but I mean, time will tell. Also, I didn't talk a whole lot about the barrels themselves. These felt a little bit cheaper, but honestly, I think they're definitely worth it. They do come in smaller packs, so if money is an issue, you don't have to buy the 200 pack for $100. They have smaller sets for cheaper. Honestly though, I think I would recommend saving up and getting the 200 pack just because since the color variety is so limited already, I feel like you might as well. I believe they have 200 colors available, so this set is every marker they have. And then also from what I've seen within the other packs, the colors can be kind of random depending on what you get. Like, they don't have like color sets like blue hues and red hues. They sell them in number sets, and from my understanding, it's kind of just random. When I ordered these, it also came with a little packet of like an FAQ, and one of them was that you got duplicate colors, so that can also be an issue. I'm not saying that the 200 set is necessary, just as somebody who has not only used the 200 set, but also just alcohol markers in general and have a better idea of how they work. I'd recommend it, but you don't have to, just my 2 cents. So yeah. Can I recommend these? Yes, absolutely. I can't imagine me making a finished illustration with Ohuhu markers exclusively too often. I could definitely see me doing it every now and again. I think the main way I'm going to be using Ohuhu markers is in a combination with my Copic markers, like if I don't have a specific color in Copic markers, or if I have a similar color in Copics but that one's running out of ink, or if I'm going somewhere and I get too nervous about bringing my Copics because I'm afraid of losing them, I feel like I could just grab some Ohuhu markers and use those as a replacement. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed them. I definitely am going to continue using them. And I hope you guys are happy now that I finally reviewed them. If you guys want to ask any questions about them, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I feel like I covered everything, but we know how small brain I can be sometimes, so if you have any questions about these or just alcohol markers in general, feel free to comment them down below. I'll do my best to answer. And I think that's about all I have for you guys today, so let me know what you think of this. If you've also had a different experience with Ohuhu markers, feel free to share. I'd love to hear it. And if you are new here, hello, my name is Oliver. I post a lot of art videos here. I post every single Wednesday and bonus videos whenever I can. So if you like the art in this video, if you like me for some reason, feel free to stick around. I'd really, really appreciate it. And you can also follow me on social media, which will be on screen now in this little corner, and they will be linked in the description box below. I'd recommend following me on Instagram because that is where I am most active. That is where I post my art. I'll sometimes get you guys in on these videos. There's a bunch of fun stuff, so go follow me there. And there will also be some videos on screen now and linked in the iCard for you to check out. Again, I would really, really appreciate it. I feel very repetitive every time I say that. But thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you next week. Bye.